Creating a successful business has never been so simple. Welcome to the Journey of Entrepreneurship podcast.
Your hosts, Richard Phipps and Ross Lerorio,
will provide valuable insights that will help you turn your ideas into reality.
Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the Journey of Entrepreneurship podcast. My name is Rosler and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Richard Phipps. How are you doing today, Mr. Phipps?
I'm doing just great. As usual, great to be with you again.
I'm glad to hear that. And are you on the East Coast or West Coast this week?
Mystery. Actually, I just got to the West Coast.
Okay.
So it's as you can tell, it's an early riser, and that's a wonderful thing because the early riser catches the worms, which means, well, worms are good in many ways. Some people hear worms, ew, but when you think of worms, you think of fishing and getting the big fish, the ones that come fresh in the morning. You think of the work they do for the soil to keep us healthy and keep the soil healthy so that we can continue to get good fruit and vegetable as long as it's not contaminated with the other chemicals that some of our agriculturalists add to the soil.
Well, you are ready as always, early in the morning, even though you're on the West Coast.
You have to be ready, especially when you're looking for opportunities. You have to be wide awake when they arrive. Otherwise, you might sleep past them.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned opportunities because today I want to discuss an important topic for entrepreneurs and something that I think not too many entrepreneurs think of when they start a business, but having multiple streams of income.
That is a wonderful thought. That builds wealth, it builds capacity, it builds stability, it builds a lot of things. If it's done in the right order, if it's done correctly, if it's done with good thought and good plan, everything has to do with planning in order to get the right results. So I say plan, perform, profit. Those P's. Sometimes I throw in the additional P, the P for people, so that some people think that it happens because they come up with an idea. But I always remind them, without people, nothing happens, including them. So if we can move forward with any angle that you would like to look at, there's multiple streams of income, and there are many. You can be a serial entrepreneur. You can have multiple opportunities moving, or multiple product lines as you build out. There's a number of ways to create multiple streams of income. Is there a particular one you would like us to pursue? Maybe the serial entrepreneur?
At first, I would want to start with the importance of structuring a business in a way to incorporate multiple streams of income and the mindset that has to go along with that, and then we can move into serial entrepreneurship.
Okay. So oftentimes, a person has an idea about some type of business, and they'll, as we shared in early broadcast, they'll just start off with the thinking and plan. Thinking a mobilization. Let me not say planning. Thinking of mobilization for that business. So I want to have a fruit stand, or I want to have a hardware store, and how do I do this? And then they start, where do I rent a place? And then where do I, get additional money to get inventory, or work to get inventory, or if it's a service, and there isn't a lot of planning, literally actual written planning that goes into their business mobilization process. So I was just at a retreat this past weekend in Manchester by the Sea in Essex County. And I had a chance to speak to the CEO, former CEO, because they sold the business of Constant Contact, which is a tool used by most small businesses to communicate with their clients. And I'm sure the Mr. Stern would appreciate the plug. But he built a very unique organization and business process that enable small businesses all over the globe to benefit. Now, when we think of, and he is, by the way, a serial entrepreneur, he shared some very good tips in terms of process, but I'll get to those in a little bit. But what I wanted to sort of address immediately is, people start businesses for different reasons. Some emotional, some logical. But as we speak about starting a business, you have to start a serial entrepreneurship or multiple streams of income with one thought, one idea, and implement that idea successfully before you dissipate energies on another idea, because businesses are like babies. They need to be incubated and cared for and nurtured through full development at a point where, a child becomes eligible to go off and start their own life, after college or whatever, as an independent adult. We get our businesses to that level where they can operate, independently without us, and they can be sold as part of the plan that you have for your business. Now, many people that start businesses in the smaller markets, when they say small, in the small business arena, don't generally start with building a business for sale, but which is a very common thought about those trained scholars or minds who understand that business is supposed to make profit, and a profit is what you look for throughout a business opportunity or experience. Therefore, if we're talking about multiple streams of income, we still have to start with the basic concept of building a solid business income opportunity to a point where it's producing income with or without us. Now, that's difficult to do if you own the job, like if you're a doctor or a lawyer. So in those professional spaces, you have to develop associates or practices that can function still with or without you. So you're not the only person providing the service, because you're tied to the business if you are. Same thing with the store, or convenience store, or other business enterprises. I know of one friend of mine in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, that started a business, a convenience store, back in the, I want to say, 80s, mid 80s. A gentleman from Ghana, and he still has, him and his wife still operate that corner store 30 plus years later. So, and he does, they both do everything associated with the store. She's expanded it, speaking of multiple streams of income, she's expanded it from a convenience corner store, grocery store, and she now offers accessories for beauty, hair, nail polish, things that it's a side additional stream of income based on her ability and that of people that she's hired with for beauty and healthcare. So we can at times be able to follow, understand the concept associated with the multiple streams of income. Now, I want to sort of digress a little bit in terms of how that's developed, because we talked about the plan. And I would hesitate a little bit when I say the plan, because as people get ideas about businesses, sometimes they just go straight to the business, and it is essential. I can't understate this. It is very, very important that when you decide on a business that you would like to pursue, that you determine by research, by market analysis, if there's a need for that business. Because if you have an idea to open up, we always come back to the salon thing, huh?
Yep.
And if you decide you want to open up a salon, and there's, a salon on every corner of the block where you intend to open up, what is the competition? How are you going to differentiate yourself? How are you going to make money in that market? Now I had a certain train of thought until recently when I visited Paris, and I realized that some of these things are possible in certain spaces based on the environment. While I was there, I noticed that in regards to where you went in the city, pretty much there was commercial accommodations on the first level, and I mean commercial of every type: the corner store, the gift shop, the beauty salon, the cafe, the whatever you wanted. It was somewhere within reach of whatever you wanted. It was somewhere within reach, within minutes of a walk in either direction. So I want to share with folks on the podcast, it's not necessarily a fixed situation, but you do have to do the research necessary to determine if your business is going to be a viable and profitable business, if there's a need for it, so people will consume your service or product in the location that you are determining, or the location that you decided to set up shop in. Now, Rosler, as you know, oftentimes when people do or start businesses, as we shared in the past, there's not a lot of thought about location. They have the idea and then they look for a location. But we're going to suggest doing it a little bit different. Once you have the idea, instead of starting with the idea, sort of do the research to determine where that business would best benefit you and provide the greatest opportunity for profit based on the need, which would be your consumers. Now, that requires doing some demographic research, depending on who your target market is. And some people say, well, I'm going to open up a corner store. Everybody needs a corner store. Very, very incorrect. There are only certain people that will go into a corner store. And there are reasons for that. Some people believe that the prices in corner stores for convenience is much too high, so they don't want to pay the high price. Some people believe that the product or products in a convenience store will be less fresh than, although that thought may be incorrect, but they believe it will be less fresh than going into the big food chains. However, I've dealt and advised in corner stores and convenience store owners that go to the markets every day, the same places where the big markets go, where the big stores go to get their product delivered. But most people would know that. The third thing is, a lot of times people assume that only people with a certain income level would use a convenience store. And the truth is, and although prices may vary or prices may be a little higher for the convenience, it is still accessible to anybody. But generally, people that use a convenience store are going to be those people that live right in the neighborhood of the convenience store, probably walking distance. Others will go to a convenience store for the specific product that they may offer that other stores may not. And others may go as a matter of convenience, driving by, and they think of a need. So it's accessible to anybody, but some people won't necessarily reason that way. Oftentimes, folks with resources will choose to go away from the convenience stores and the big chains in there, but to boutique stores that offer them specific health products products of a certain variety that they need for their nutrition purposes, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of thought, a lot of processing of information that should go in to determining whatever location, whether it's a alcohol and beverage store, whether it's a convenience store on food items, whether it's for example, you're not going to necessarily put a gift shop, a tourist gift shop, in the local community. You have to put it in an area where tourists are going to frequent, so to get your best results. So that's a good example of something that really requires, research to determine, which location, unless there's just a single location that you get, but even in a single location big enough, you will have opportunities to put multiple products in an outlet. And that doesn't necessarily mean multiple streams of income, multiple products in an outlet to have a variety of product that will attract visitors to your store. Now, in some cases, you can customize a high demand product. Another thing that I noticed while I was in Paris is they had the specialty stores. I don't want to market any particular product, but the brand merchandise, you name it, whether it was Gucci, Prada, Louis Vuitton, there were names that I didn't even recognize, but the national brand, international brands, they had lines outside of the stores just for specific items from those stores. And some stores had 2-3 locations, one handling handbags, one handling jewelry, and one handling perfumes and fragrances, and they all had lines outside of these specialty stores for these items. And I'm like, that's a new way that I sort of had to come to terms with, because it seems to me if you have a brand name store, that you should be able to, but they have these things very strategically separated. So different customs occur in different marketplaces, and that's why I'm opening up the discussion rather than just U.S. and territories, so that people who listen to the broadcast in other places, which I know now is very possible, get the benefit of the information that's being shared. But as we talk about multiple streams of income, which is the topic of the discussion, multiple streams of income has many definitions. But in terms of the definition, that's going to be determined by the person who is wanting to create a multiple stream. I'm in trouble. I just said a multiple stream, or who wants to create multiple streams of income. And that's something that will require them to do some initial research. Now, you may pick a product or service to start an outlet, and the key is, again, finding something that's in demand, that people would be willing to pay for, that creates economic opportunity. And economic opportunity, by definition, is anything that you can do, produce, or serve that somebody is willing to pay for. So if somebody is willing to pay you for a product or a service, that in itself is economic opportunity. There's another piece that we can talk about at a later date, which is economic empowerment. But dealing with economic opportunity as a part of the multiple streams of income, we then have to look at what we can do, or what a person can do, as one revenue source or income producer, and go through the plan process for that to bring it to the marketplace, realize some profit from it, fine-tune the process by which they brought that to the marketplace to maximize the revenues, whether it's additional marketing, additional technology, whatever it requires based on feedback from customers. That's another thing that we don't do a lot. And, we put something out and we expect that it's going to go. However, that's just an expectation. The research needs to be done to determine, research, I keep using the word research, but the evaluation has to be done between you and your customers or potential clients to determine, how it's affecting them or how it's benefiting them or how it's not benefiting them, so you can make adjustments in order to increase your distribution and profitability. So the customers initially are a very integral part of the process, and a larger part of the process as you move forward. Russ, are we together?
Yes.
Okay. I heard a chirp in the message. And the customers are even a larger part of the process as we move forward, because those are the same customers we expect to provide products or services to, and we expect them to consume those things in order to generate revenue. I think of some things that are not necessarily helpful or productive, but garner large markets. One of the things that amazes me nowadays is the vaping. That's something that's consumed and they have to go back, and it's like medication, it's like food. These things, anything that you have to consume that goes away and then you need to refresh can be very interesting in streams of income because they're continuous. Mm-hmm. In big business, the same thing happens. We have the iPhone and the Samsungs and the other brands that, produce something new every year. Version 2, version 5, and the idea is that people believe or perceive that the next version has something over the previous version. And sometimes those changes are very minimal, but it helps to drive business because people want customers want the biggest and the best and the brightest and the most current. So we're in a market where people want to be current with everything, and that's market driven. So we have to be able to compete in that space as well. And if as a serial entrepreneur, and if as a person seeking multiple streams of income, that person has to have products and services that do the same thing in order to continue building revenue. So it's very important that a lot of thought is given to the product or service, the process, the distribution process, the market that you're targeting, whether it's teenagers with the sports gear, whether it's middle age with gadgets and housing and things of that nature, or whether it's the seniors with the things that they prefer and health products to stay young and live long, because as you get into your senior years, people start to think about longevity. Everybody has eternal life built into their heart, so they want to just buy things to keep them healthy and live long. Obviously, that creates a market. So depending on where you are in the marketplace will help to determine your ability to generate profits successfully, and then from one product, and then from the success and learning that you do with one successful product, you can open up your product line to move to another product. When we started with financial services. And financial services was a tool that allowed us to help many people, both individuals and businesses. And when we realized the market that created, it allowed us to expand and provide real estate services to those people who would qualify for real estate. And we knew that based on the refunds they were receiving or the amounts of money they had in the bank. It was a clear determination. And then we had discussions with them about credit and their interest in becoming homeowners. And then the opportunity was there to provide home ownership. So we went from insurance and tax services to providing insurance, tax services, a part of the financial planning process, to be able to help those that were ready, willing, and able to be able to move into home ownership. Now, once home ownership became a reality, that opened opportunity for additional services. And, that spawned off a third type of activity, which was supported, oftentimes people have need for guidance, counseling, in terms of fiscal management, because it's not something they teach in schools. And, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a way of managing your finances, if you don't have budgeting, and which is a big part of the language nowadays, and it works whether you're in business or whether you're home, when you're just an individual, you have to budget. Big business, small business or individual, you have to budget. If you only have, 10,000 a month coming in, you can't spend 15,000 and stay afloat. If you only have 4,000 coming in, you can't spend 5,000 and stay afloat. So everything has to fit in the box based on your income. And the same for businesses, because we're talking multiple streams of income, small businesses to begin with that grow into big businesses. And if you start with one product line, I know a young lady that just started a product line this is in Massachusetts, one of our clients. She started a product line with healthy hot shakes. There's another word for them, but let's say healthy shake. And then once that business grew to a certain level, she added sandwiches, healthy sandwiches. And once the sandwiches took off and people were consuming them, she added desserts, healthy desserts. So she started one product line, and as that line, that stream became successful and profitable, she added something else. And now she has a thriving business. And in health food, healthy edible products or consumable products, and that's serving the community at large, and is doing very well. There's another client that we had that started with fruit cups, and built a large following. As a matter of fact, he would tell people, I was not following for a minute his line of reasoning, but he was saying, well, if they didn't have money, I would leave it with them, and they could catch me the next time I went back to the shop or the location wherever he visited. And he did so well, and he was able to now move to a location, open up a second shop in Rhode Island, and this is over probably a 5-year period. So, and he had a plan, and he's been working his plan. The other lady had a plan, and she's been working her plan. She also got some funding from the city of Boston for her. So there are resources available to help small businesses, and consulting available to help. So if a person is thinking about operating a serial entrepreneurship or developing multiple streams of income, where one can come first from services, then one can come from housing, then another can come from whatever source a person decides might be suitable for them. They can build multiple streams of income, but we always recommend build one, get it solid, have it producing positive, so that you're not going to experience a break in revenue or financial difficulty if you have a good plan, and the plan, you execute the plan well. So we encourage good thought to the process. We encourage looking at other businesses, evaluating the opportunity in the marketplace, We recommend doing the research for your demographics as to who you're going to serve, because not everybody is going to use your product or service. See the concentration of folks that might use your product or service, or would use your product or service, and target them. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, Ross, as you can imagine. And then folks follow the directions that they are provided sometimes through your podcast and other works that written works that guide small business owners, or even major businesses, because major businesses have a need for training as well, and they hire trainers that come in and provide the training in whatever area they have a weakness. They're specialists in many areas: customer service, time management, productivity, and certainly being able to provide these resources to big businesses as small businesses, as we do for small businesses, is something that can be beneficial across the board.
Wow, that was a lot. It's definitely a complicated subject, and there are many different avenues that you can go to add multiple streams of income to your business. But something that we always continuously come back to is the plan. Having a solid plan, making sure that before you move on to a new product, service, or even a different type of business, that your initial business has a solid foundation. And something that you mentioned that I definitely want to highlight is, in your case, you started with financial services and you found another problem to solve. We should always be looking for providing a solution to the clients that we may currently have, or providing a solution to the market. We should always be seeking to follow what the market dictates and add those services as our business is stable enough to have them, whether it be, in one case, like you mentioned, maybe you might want to sell your business, or maybe you might want to add real estate or financial services or something else to something you already have established, or expanding services for a business that you currently have, as in adding the healthy sandwiches or adding something to your boutique or corner store. But essentially, we should always be coming back to the plan, seeing what the market dictates, and following those things once we have a solid foundation in our business.
You are very correct, my dear friend. I would add a small note. The Metamorphosis retreat that was held this past weekend in Gloucester, Mass. The young lady who hosted that retreat, Kirsten Martin, sort of did a fine job in pooling some resources together that for a specific industry. But in that, which was the cannabis industry, but in that resource, in that retreat, there were multiple opportunities for people to explore, including multiple funding sources. And one of the things that I got from a conversation with one of the CEOs and was, in terms of when you're thinking of multiple streams of income, that's a good thought to have, because it says something about your mindset. But if you start pursuing that without a plan, it's like trying to create a building without a foundation, and it's virtually impossible to do. So you really have to do the thinking first, and once you get through the thought process, or the other thing I say as part of the thinking, you have to clearly envision what you want, because if you can't put it on paper so that other people will understand your vision, then it becomes a challenge. So the planning, the business plan part of it helps to clarify your vision so that others can understand and buy into the vision. And that's another way to be able to validate what you're doing. Now, some people are always, I shouldn't say always, there's some people who will be skeptical, some naysayers, and then there's some that will be excited about the opportunity. And what you're looking for is both, but both will help you to fine-tune your business enterprise or plan, but you really want to do that based on numbers. And the numbers don't lie. The marketplace will tell you whether there's a need or not a need. And if the marketplace does not say there's a need based on the numbers, the data, because three of the executives I had a chance to converse with made the same statement without talking to each other because we were at different times. And they also all said, for your clients, Rich, you have to be sure that all the decisions are data-driven. You can't do business emotionally. You have to do business logically. Basically, emotions come in with service and so forth. But in terms of the business decisions, you have to do that based on data. And you can only get the data from the research that's done on the marketplace. So that was the thought I wanted to leave, data-driven decisions.
Very important to continuously do research and continue to evaluate your position in the market.
Yeah. Ross, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you, my friend, and it's a good learning experience in many ways. I pick up thoughts from you that as you share things, and we're able to share thoughts with the audience, and I hope that the thoughts we share benefit them in the short term and the long term, and if they need additional information, they could always reach out to the source.
Absolutely. And
which is
we're available to answer any questions that listeners may have. And my email is Rosler, ROSLER, at thinkingoutloudinc.com. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Phipps, and we appreciate the knowledge that you shared with us today, and we look forward to our next podcast.
We'll talk then. Until then, have a great time.
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.